Hello, hello. Our next lesson is going to be on landscapes, intuitive landscapes. So I had some really fun times playing with the card panels that I already made. I made that one as an intuitive landscape, this one, and this one. And I wanted to kind of share with you different ways, different fun effects that you can use just by using brushos and then adding some sentiments or stamps. This is a sentiment stamp from Tailored Expressions. These are Lavinia stamps, and you add a simple color wash background like this, and then you add some of these stamps and you get these beautiful cards. So I'm going to show you first how I made this landscape, intuitive landscape. And I think honestly you could just put like an affirmation or a beautiful sentiment right up here and frame it, and you would have a really nice piece of artwork. I don't think you would have to put stamps on these, but if you wanted to, you can. So let's get started. There's a lot to cover, and I'll probably do 2 different lessons on intuitive landscapes, but we'll start with this first. So this piece is a little bit smaller, but I wanted to practice. I wanted to show you how I practice with these landscapes first. So what I like to do is sometimes, not all the time, but I will like to actually get my whole thing wet, my whole place wet. And it had a little bit of brusho on it. And I didn't want purple brusho to get in with my yellow because then it won't be as vibrant. And then I'm gonna spray this. Ah, look at that, beautiful. Okay, and then I'm just gonna like press it down with my, I already got ink on my hand, so I don't wanna get ink on the paper. So that's my trick. Anyways, all right, I'm going to start with this new gamboge. Actually, I'm going to start with something a little bit less bossy. Yellow is this is a very nice, it's just yellow. It's not lemon yellow. I like it. It doesn't have that bright quality to it. And I'm focusing on tapping the brush onto the whole paper. And I'm happy with that. Tap, 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 tap. You don't want to tap too much. Practice and you'll find out. Sometimes your holes, sometimes you just have to play with it. And that's why I'm always saying, play with your pigments, play with everything. And I learned this from Angela Fair and Jean Haynes. So if you're looking for the inspiration as to how I'm teaching, I learned from Angela Fair and Jean Haynes. Okay, I like that. I'm gonna just let it be. Not a whole lot of thinking went into this, right? I'm just putting yellow on paper, and when you think of it as more simple terms, you're gonna get a better result. Now I'm gonna go back into New Gamboge, and this is really just gonna be my sky. And I'm tapping. And I like this right here, so I'm gonna leave it. And I'm gonna add a little bit more water to that. And I see that I need to it's too wet right there, so I'm gonna dab that up a little bit. And for skies, I always like to tip it one way. So when I say one way, like pick which way you want the clouds to go, or however you want to, like just one way. So if I went down, that would be okay, but I like to just do one, and then I can set it back down and it'll still not warp because it's wet on both sides at this point. Okay, and it's pretty wet, so I'm going to let it be, but I want that nice, I want some red in it, right? So what I'll do is I'm going to take my OST red, I can't remember how they pronounced it, and I'm going to leave a little bit of, I want this to be kind of like where the sun is, so I'm leaving a gap right there, and we'll see. And it's going to move, I'm going to make it move, but that's okay. And then while it's moving, I'm spraying this down so I get this nice flow. And you might be thinking, I could have done this with watercolor. Yes, that is exactly right. You could have done this with watercolor. But part of the fun with brusho is getting that texture. And I like having the same color. And so I could have matched this red or this yellowy orange color to my watercolor and had this nice wash. But it's easier just to have this all together at the same time. So I'm going to take my new gamboge again and I'm going to add it to that orange color. Every time you do this, it turns out different. I mean, and that's the reality of it, and it's so much fun. So there we go. There's that texture that I want. And so there's a really pretty sunrise. Isn't that fun? All right, so now that we practice, let's go with the real thing. Ready? Got my workstation all cleaned up. Let's do this. I'm excited. All right. Hopefully you can see just fine. All right, so and I'm going to spray the bottom again. That'll work out nice, just like that. You can tell that I haven't really been using my brush much, and that's okay. We will get there. All right, and now, because I don't want to get anything on. Okay, that looks good. Then if I wanted to, I can spray it again, which I will. I really like the sprayer because if you spray it like all the way long instead of short, like you get a nice even spray. If you spray like short little spritz, you get like droplets. So I like the long because you get like an even mist. Or it's just one of those things that Tim Holtz designed and I'm really grateful for. All right, let's start this. So I used, for the sky, I used yellow and then new gamboge and then the red. You guys can kind of see. Oh. Okay, ready? And now I'm also thinking, because I'm going for something like this, except for I'm not going to put green in the middle, although I could. And I might. I can show you how to do that too. But right now I'm going to start with this yellow. Okay. And then I'm going to go right before I spray, I'm going to go ahead and add that new gamboge in. Now I can spray. And remember, long spritz equals a final mist, a more even mist. All right, so I can tell right now, just right off by thinking, I'm gonna want some more. All right. And I think at this point it's still pretty early in the stage that I can tilt this one way and add some water and it's gonna still look okay. And I want it to look atmospheric, which is what I'm getting right now, but I also want it to start telling a story, like maybe the sun is setting and that there's clouds wispy in the sky and the water is doing most of the work, which is what I want. So let's go ahead and add that green. And in this particular instance, I used a leaf green. Leaf green has a bit of a earthy tone to it. It has more of a yellow, so I don't mind using it with the yellow. It'll add, yeah, you gotta see it forming already. You see that green? Isn't that gorgeous? And I'm going to spray a little bit more because I know I tapped a lot of green in. And again, a little bit of water will go a long way. I'm going to need some more of this green. And now I'm just gonna wait for it to really do its thing. So I'm always thinking background, which is the sky, the middle ground, which is this green, and then my foreground. What do I want my foreground to be? And if you've ever studied Chinese painting or Japanese painting or in any Eastern culture art form, they always have a beautiful way of doing a background, foreground, and middle ground. And that's where I've learned this technique. So if you want to study that, study those cultures. Anyways, I really kind of like this green. I don't know if I want to mess with it too much. It does look like I could add, I don't know if, and I'm sure if I really wanted to, I could add, I think it just had too much yellow for me. A lot of this is just playing around, seeing what you really like. I think now that I have this yellow, I'm going to go back in up here and add some more. You can always add, but you cannot take away, so I'm always very cautious on what I'm adding to my painting. But for that, it's really pretty. And then more of that more of that red. Like I'm adding to it. I don't want to take away from it, but I also want to add to it. Yeah, I really like that. It's going to look really pretty. Isn't that fun? It almost reminds me of like a summer afternoon, late afternoon. But because I really want the green to shine just a little bit more, and I really love this, I love that right there. Isn't that just really bold and beautiful? I'm not quite done yet. What I want to do is I want to get this bottom pretty wet. And this is this is always the tricky part, is I'm going to add this brown to the bottom and see what happens. And I don't want it to go up into the sky at all, so I'm going to very much be diligent. A lot of this takes patience, and I've learned to I've learned to have patience when it comes to this. Yeah. A lot of patience. Now I could use a paintbrush, and I think that if I did, I would have a little bit more control. But I also don't want to stop what I'm doing just to get a paintbrush and open up my brushos when I know nothing is going to happen right now. And I'm really watching. I really don't want this brown to get up any closer to it. Now this looks vibrant. It's going to dry lighter, but I really like this. And that's kind of the inspiration for this. And when it dries, it's going to dry lighter. Now what I will do is I am going to take some of this gold and I'm going to sprinkle this on where the grass is and where the brown is, because the brown and the gold will really look nice together. It'll add a lot of texture to it. And then just I'm just kind of dropping in water droplets on that, because I still want texture. And so there you go. And I didn't actually put in a whole lot of that green texture, so I'm going to go back in and re-add that texture wherever I think, especially in that green. Okay, that looks good. And because I still love my yellow, and I really want some texture right in there. There. All right, I'm calling that done. I'm completing that. That one's going to be done. Let's go with another moody landscape, another intuitive. This is intuitive landscapes, and it's just fun. All right, so there we go. Hopefully, so what we learned here was to kind of add this middle in our minds. We're not actually producing this because it still looks like one tone, but we're gonna add dimension with the stamp, right? And I think when we cut it, we should be able to get two different scenes from it. So we learned starting with the sky, going into our middle ground, and then going into our foreground. And if I wanted to, I could add a little bit more, but I really want this to shine. I want to leave it. I don't want to touch it anymore. I mess with it just enough that if I mess with it anymore, it's going to turn into mud, or it's just going to not look very fresh. And I want it to look fresh, so I'm walking away from it. And I think it's going to look really nice when it's done. All right, so let's go with I'm going to show you one more landscape. We'll try and do something more like this. Okay? All right. So let me get my paper started. Remember, I like to spray my work surface. This is a fun one. I really had fun making this. Okay. All right. Sometimes it's just really dry and you gotta use all that you can. Okay. All right. Good deal. So let's start with our yellow again. And actually we'll go with our regular yellow. And again, I'm being pretty liberal with my yellow. I'm going all the way. I'm coating this thing with yellow. It's really fun. It's fun to just watch it burst. I think what makes me so happy to use watercolor is the fact that you can control the results, kind of, but when you let it work its magic, it gives you such a cool result that you don't normally could get with any other medium, and that's why brushos are so fun. I know I feel like all I'm doing is tapping. Tap, tap, tap. There. All right. And the yellow has some red to it. So if you're wondering what is up with the red, it's naturally in the yellow. That's how brushos are made, which I like because I like having that extra texture and that extra surprise. Like, oh, there's some yellow in there. How fun. All right. Here's my red. Again, I'm using the OST red. It's like Oswald or I don't know, but I really like it, and I'll take it, and I don't know why it's called that. So if anyone knows why, I would love to know. I know why lots of other pigments are called their color name, but I don't know why. They should just put it as like red number 2. I don't know. Watercolor has numbers for the pigment, but I don't know about that. Okay. Whoosh. All right, look at that beautiful, beautiful sunrise, sunset. I don't know, maybe you're a sunrise girl. All right, now I'm gonna go with my moss green. Here's my new gamboge, here's my leaf green, there's my moss green. I have to organize my colors. Okay, ready? And so with this was really pretty. I really went in, I'm doing, this is, I would call my foreground. And I went in pretty heavy, about an inch up, I went pretty heavy, and then I let, just half an inch up, I just kind of let it run, so you get this really pretty, almost wildflower look. Okay, now with this I left it alone. I really didn't want to mess with it too much, and look at how pretty that looks. Okay, now what I did was I took my black, here's my black, and I really like this, and I'm gonna have to spray a little bit. Dribble, 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 drop, dribble, 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 drop. That's what it seems like. Anyways, and the black, at some point, I'm being very strategic where I'm placing the black. I want the black at the bottom of the paper. So I'm almost going off the paper just so I know I'm not going too much into it. But you can kind of see how pretty that's looking. No, it didn't look like I got some green up there. There's a couple ways to fix that. We add more water and we blot it. And that will take away a little bit. And then later we can add on to the yellow. Now I'm tipping this down because I don't want any more browns to bleed in. All right, and now I'm just gonna let it kind of bleed back into to it. And that's gonna be really messy and watery, so I'm gonna, a lot of it is intuitive painting. I call these landscapes intuitive landscapes because it really is that. It's, you have to know your medium, and you have to be happy knowing that you're gonna get some specks maybe up there, or it's not the same yellow, but I think because it doesn't have to be. I'm gonna add some more yellow here. And I think that's gonna look really cool. And so then what you'll get is once it's dried, you'll get to be able to have something like this. It might not be exactly like this, and I'll add some brown right into here. The other thing that you could totally do that I haven't shown you, which I think I'm gonna have to, is I'm gonna make a puddle of brown right here. And I'm gonna take my brush. I really love that sky. Isn't that sky beautiful? And I'm gonna dab it in. So then it gives it a bit of a foreground to it. Isn't that pretty? There. Yep. Something like that. Now, I'm still getting brown right there, and that's okay. because I don't have to use the whole card panel. I can use just half of it, and I'm okay with that too. So maybe what I'll do is just use like from here to here, and I'll have that as like throwaway. And that's okay, you know, you can't always predict it. But man, like this from here on is really beautiful. I can't wait. All right, I'm gonna leave that alone. Should we try one more time just in case? I think that's gonna look really pretty. Let's try that again. A lot of it is practice. Try one more time. Okay, intuitive landscape, number 3. Sometimes I like to just take a deep breath, breathe in, think about the colors that you want to use, and then just start playing with the landscape. Okay, so I'm going to start with New Gamboge. Artists have to warm up, and sometimes it takes a couple minutes to warm up, so the first one might not always be perfect, and the second one might not be perfect, and a lot of times I'll find that the first one is really cool, and then the second one is more of a flop, and then the third one's kind of in the middle. I'm okay with that, because I know that you can't rush art, and I already am seeing a whole lot of cool textures that I'm really excited about. Just from this, yeah. You know, and I think yellow should be, all right, let's see what else we got. I'm gonna do just this simple yellow. I got the New Gamboge on. I got my red and my yellow kind of out of the way, so now I can just really enjoy the process. There's my couple of yellow. Now to make things just really simple, I'm going to add a little bit of red here, maybe here, because I already had some red, and maybe right there. All right, I'm going to let that just play. Now I'm going to take my brush, and I'm just going to again, I really like my spray bottle. And I think sometimes what I'll do also is I'll let the sky dry, and then I'll come back in later and add the foreground, which might be what I do. So I'm going to let that dry. I think that will look like a really cool sky actually when I'm done. And I'm going to add a little bit more yellow. Because again, yellow is like my unifier, man. I love it. Spraying again. This time maybe I'm letting it run the other way. Just to give it some... just to make it look more like a sky. And so if you were going to use blue to make a sky, I would just do like 2 or 3 different colors of blue and do the same thing. Instead of red and yellow, maybe I would do turquoise and ultramarine, and I can show you that while I let that dry on a piece of paper. I'll let this dry, and then I'll come back and do the bottom of the landscape. So here is Here's another piece of scrap paper that I can totally make into a card. Not scrap paper, it's scrap watercolor paper. When I say scrap paper, it makes me think it's like scrap cardboard. It's still watercolor paper. Let me show you how I would make like a blue sky. There's a couple ways. This is my way. This is my favorite way. And it will never turn out the same, so you can't expect it to. But it is a really fun way to make a sky. All right. So I got my ultramarine going. And I kind of already showed you how I made it with playing with just the blues, but I didn't actually show you how I would make the sky. All right. And this might actually be more of a, it feels like I'm just washing away the paint. Oh, there's a lot of pigment. I love ultramarine because it gives you such a beautiful texture. So there, that could be a really beautiful sky, but I'm going to take it a little bit further because I think we could do a little bit more with it. We're going to take some turquoise, and where it's darkest is where I'm adding extra, or where I think I want more. Okay, and I'm just going to kind of let it do its thing. And then I'm just going to let it run. Now, when I think I have it pretty good, I can take my, and then I'm just adding clouds. It will dry like that, but that is one way you can make a sky. And it has a really nice flow to it. Now you could cut this in half. And I think what I'll do is add a little bit more ultramarine. Blue skies and sunshine. I think this would make for a really pretty sky. Yeah, look at that. It's just like, it comes alive when you, and then if you wanted to add some water to it. And really what I'm doing is I'm just letting it flow. Letting the watercolor, letting the brusho play nice together. There. I really like that. It's gonna dry lighter, so it's not gonna look so blue. Even though it is going to look pretty blue, but it's going to look really cool when it's done. It's going to look like a sky or an ocean, maybe some water. So there's your play time with the water. Now or the ocean, or the sky, the ocean or the sky. Water, sky is water, right? And so if you know how to paint the ocean, you know how to paint a sky. What I will do is I'm going to add some pearl to it. I think that'll just really add some really fun, like an iridescent color to it. And then spray it, and that's going to make it look really cool. Yep, there, I like it. All right, let's see if our other one is ready to be about. Okay, I'm running out of space. All right, here's our sky, and it's about dry enough that I can do something with. So there's the sky that I just did, but I can go ahead and start putting on. And so sometimes it's nice when it's dry because then you can kind of know exactly where your water's at, so you can kind of control where the brush goes. I think that's good. I can see, you can kind of see where the line is. You see it? You can kind of see where it's shimmery and then it doesn't. Like right there, it's really shimmery. If I go up, it's not so shimmery. So I know where my line is now. Now I can use that same moss green and I can very much know exactly where it's gonna go without it going all over. And so what I'm thinking about when I'm putting this down is I'm growing vegetation. I don't know what I'm growing, but I'm growing something. So I know I have to start at the bottom and I know I have to work my way up. And that might seem really silly, but it works for me and I think it will work for you if you actually do try it. I don't know what it is about creating in your mind and then getting it onto paper, but it works. And I know I found that tip from her name is Yo Chang, and she's an American artist, but she's studied Japanese painting. That was her like big study in college, and so that was her. Yeah, look at that. Oh, it's so pretty. And so I got that tip from. Think of it growing, right? You're growing whatever kind of vegetation, and I am going to take my brush, and I'm just going to kind of give that water somewhere to go, because then I'm going to take this brown like I'm dabbing. What I don't want to have happen is I don't want to ruin the texture, so I'm dabbing the water so it adds more of that texture. Okay, so that brown, because I'll sprinkle a little bit on the bottom because I don't mind that, but then I'm going to add some of that paint to it. And I think I'll just start getting that brown. I'm kind of impatient sometimes. What? And I don't want the brown to be all one level, so I'm going in and I'm changing up where I don't want it to just be one line, right? I want it to look very organic. And by doing that, I'm getting it. Now I can go back in and add some of that textured to it. And so a lot of it is just playing around and seeing what works and what you like and what you don't. There, I'm going to call that done. I could probably add some more brusho to the brown. So I'm going to. But you get the idea. It's all about playing. Yeah. All right. I'm walking away from it. I'm afraid that if I do any more, it's not going to look nice. It's not going to look right. It's going to look funny. I'm not going to be happy with it. So, walking away from it. But isn't that fun? Oh, we're going to make some really cool cards out of this one, and I'll show you some of the other ones. And the next one is where I'm going to show you how I make my sea. I kind of already showed you how I did the blue, but here are the ones that we just finished. Here's the one that we've worked on for a little bit longer than I would have liked, but isn't that beautiful? That's going to look beautiful. It still has a sheen to it, so you could still work on it, but I think that's going to look beautiful for a landscape. Here's the one that we played with when we were practicing, just the moss green with the landscapes. And here's the one with the brighter green. Look at that. That's going to be really fun too. And what I'll do is we'll cut it off in half and make some card panels and I'll show you how in the stamping lesson. Right now I just want to share with you how you do that. Isn't that beautiful? This looks like it could be a sunrise. You could cut this off right here and really do something fun with that. So I'm excited to see what we can, what kind of stamps will work for this, and can't wait to see you in your next lesson. Share your pictures. I'd love to see what you've created with these intuitive landscapes, because they are really fun. You start going, you can't stop.